Hi, everyone. Thanks for clicking on the Saturdad podcast, your comprehensive guide to separation and part time parenting made by blokes for blokes. My name's Kristian William Wright, and I want to start off by saying you are not alone. You've joined a brotherhood of men doing our absolute best to be the best blokes we can and the best parents to our children. Today I'm solo. My co host Neil David Ewan has chosen not to record this one with us. It's my fault, I broke him on the last one a little bit. It's quite an emotional topic that we're talking about. Both of us have lived experience of the things that we talk about, and there's a lot of hurt that's sitting there behind all of that. To be a soul like that in a medium such as this is a courageous thing to do, and I couldn't be prouder of my friend Neil for doing that. What he has said will be very healing to a lot of people out there. And I invite you to watch the previous podcast that had him on, where he talks about the things that he did right, the things that he did wrong, his feelings, his reality of what happened. He may not realize it, but that's going to be very healing to him, and it may be healing to you. So again, I want to extend an invitation to anybody out there who wants to try and do this, to tell their story in this medium. It's scary, it's difficult, it's bearing your soul in a public environment for everybody to see. It's full on, right? Podcasting's hard. I'm having a bit of trouble with myself, having to bear my soul constantly and seeing my emotions on a screen and hearing my voice and everything. It's full on. But if you are wanting to tell your story, if you are willing to tell your story, and to look for that healing that we're experiencing through this, I invite you to contact us via mysaturdad.com. There's a contact us form. I get those emails directly, so I'll have a look at those and get in contact from there. I'm very approachable, and I want to give you this opportunity. Just be aware, we do not attack any exes. We don't attack women. That's not what this is about at all. This is about forming a positive vision of masculinity and fatherhood that everybody can buy into. So we will not entertain attacks. And two, you are bearing your soul to the world. So be prepared for their judgment, essentially. I'd prefer not to do it anonymously. I'm happy to read out your story if you send it in, as opposed to you coming in and recording with us. But yeah, just be aware that you are open to the judgment of everybody. So this episode that I'm doing solo today is some parenting tips from a play therapist for dads who are now doing it on their own. Parenting typically is a two-person job. You've got mum and you've got dad. You have different roles in parenting that you provide. So talking about bonding as an example, there's a hormone oxytocin that's released from a child when they bond with a parent. So in mum's case, the most amount of oxytocin is released by the child when they're having a comforting embrace, when that child is being held and nurtured by the mother. The same amount of oxytocin is released in that child's brain when dad is wrestling with them. So that sort of rough, fun play that you have with your children is just as bonding for that child with you as a nurturing cuddle is between them and mum. So that's a pretty cool little factoid, and I want to encourage dads out there, do engage in that rough, fun play with your kids. It's rewarding for both of you. It's so much fun, and it really is bonding. And we now know from a biological perspective that it is bonding and important. Excuse me. So when we think about parenting, it's rare for anybody to set an overarching goal of parenting. Not little sub-goals like I want to raise a doctor and I want to raise this and that. I want to raise them religious, that sort of thing. Just an overarching goal for parenting. So the one that I propose that we can all buy into is the main goal of parenting is to raise socially acceptable children. And what I mean by that is a child that can go out into the world and make friends. It's a child that gets invited to the other kids' birthday parties because they're not a menace. It's the child that at a dinner isn't running around the table smashing plates and going crazy that no one wants to be around. Essentially, it's raising a child that fits in, for want of a better word, not in a pathological way, just in a way that they're able to create their own network of friends around them. Because as adults, that's what we have to do. We have to create our network of friends and family that we engage in reciprocal positive relationships with in order for us to thrive. So, with that as our goal, parenting should always be around that. When you think about things you do as a parent, try and realign them to that. If whatever action you take, say disciplinary or in a positive way, doesn't align with that particular goal of making a socially acceptable child, then it may not be the best type of discipline or best type of interaction that you can have with your child. So I want to talk about kids specifically under 12 because that's the cohort I work with primarily. I'm not working with teens, so this episode's, we're not gonna say much about parenting teens. So the biggest understanding that's required to parent children of that age is that they are not able to conceptualize their emotions verbally. So when your child is scared, you can visibly see that they're scared and they're in that emotion, and it's a very heightened, possibly extreme version of that emotion. And if you go up to your child and go, "What are you scared of? What's scaring you? What's going on?" they're not able to tell you what it is a lot of the time. You've probably all experienced this, that most of the time when they're feeling a strong emotion, whether it's frustration or anger or something, they're not able to tell you what caused it. And a lot of the time, they're not even able to tell you what the emotion is that they're feeling. So the emotional spectrum is quite broad. You've got your main emotions and you've got sub emotions under that, and it goes on and on. We can describe various forms of, say, anger as you've got frustration and you've got rage and you've got all those different types of anger that are different feelings that we as adults can identify. Children can't. So something that I encourage dads to do, and all parents to do actually, when kids are under 12 and they're unable to conceptualize emotions into words, is when you see them feeling a type of way, tell them what it is. 2 words. Just 2 words, no more than 2 when you do this. Say they're having a big meltdown over something. They're very angry and they're throwing things around a shop and they're absolutely losing it. Do your best to get their attention. Do your best to meet them on their level. So if you can squat down to their height, if they're throwing things and they're punching and that sort of thing, that may not be practical. But if possible, try and get their attention by looking them in the eyes, get down to their level, and then just say, "You're mad." Just as simple as you possibly can. You're frustrated. You're angry in that particular scenario. If they're scared, it's dark or something, and they're sitting there really, really frightened and they're almost unable to speak, look at them in the eyes and say, "You're scared." Acknowledge that feeling. So that works on 2 levels that are quite good for child development. So one level is you're assisting them to put a word to the emotion they're feeling. So that ability that we have as adults, you're starting to instill that into them in that age. The other thing is it's showing them that you acknowledge how they feel. So that's building trust between you and the child. You know how they feel, you're acknowledging it. Sounds easy, right? Sounds super simple. It just isn't though, because us as adults, and especially blokes are really guilty of this. We're problem solvers. We want to know what the issue is and we want to sort it out. And especially for our children when they're feeling a negative emotion and they don't, and they're not responding to us in any way, we want them to feel better, right? So our instinct, your instinct will be to go up and go, "What's wrong? Why are you feeling like this? What are you feeling?" You're going to ask a bunch of questions to try and ascertain the problem and solve it. Your children are in their hearts. They're in their emotions. They're not in their head. Hearts, not head. If you take them out of their heart, you can actually cause further dysregulation. So if you take them out of that emotional space, you can cause further dysregulation. So meet them where they're at. You're sad. You're scared. You're this. And trust your instincts on that as parents. You know how your child feels. You can see it on their face. You can see it in their behavior. You already know how they feel. You don't need to ask them. So just Just state it to them. That's a good way of connecting in a lot of ways, and a good way of managing, especially those unreasonable behaviours. Unreasonable behaviours, a simple definition, are ones that are not pro-social, are ones that don't lead to a socially acceptable child. When we say a behaviour of concern or that child's behavioural, that's what's meant. That's what we mean. And I want to touch on those terms. Please don't say to your child, you're naughty, you're good, you're this, you're that. It sounds strange to not say you're good, but the thing is, there's two things at play here. So let's tackle you're naughty first. So saying you're naughty is giving them a label. You're naughty. And you might think nothing of it because they're being naughty, they're playing up, whatever. But there's a difference between you are naughty and you're playing up, you're being naughty. That's two different things that you're saying there. As that child grows and matures, when they go to daycare, when they go to school, when they go to different environments, they're going to see kids who are being naughty. They're going to probably be bullied, or they're going to see the antisocial effects of a kid who's being naughty. And then they've been told you're naughty. So they're going to start thinking that they're that particular thing, and that can lead to them shutting down, not wanting to engage with you. It can lead to them having a bit of trouble forming that initial version of themselves. It can cause a variety of things. By all means, if you need to address a behavior, address it, but not by saying you're naughty. Just say the behavior is unacceptable or something along those lines. Just letting them know that it's not okay behavior, you're not happy, but you're not giving them a label. That's why I'd like you to avoid statements like you're naughty. Coming to you're good. Now, this one will blow you away a bit. You did a good job. That sort of thing. This one will blow you away. So we want children to be able to self-affirm. We want everybody to be able to self-affirm, right? The self-esteem movement of the 90s and everything that we grew up with, I'm 34, so I grew up with it. And, those sorts of things that were ultra encouraging, like you're a great person, you're all good, your participation award lives, the issue that comes out of that is you're essentially teaching a generation of people to rely on others for affirmation. That's the worry with you're good, you're this, you did a good job. You essentially, that does make your child feel good, but you're essentially training your child to look for that affirmation around the world. We want them to be able to, within themselves, have that affirmation. So just generally feel good for completing a task or doing something right. You know what I mean? So you did it is a bit different to an affirmation. It's just you did it. You could say things like, you should be proud of yourself. So it's you statements. It's putting it back on them, not I'm proud of you. You should be proud of yourself. You did it. So you're good's not a good example, sorry. I should have used something more along the lines of, I'm proud of you is a good example. I'm really happy that you did that. Just affirmations essentially coming from you to them. You want to emphasize that it was their effort that caused it and encourage the effort that they put in. So you should be really proud of yourself. You did it. You built that thing. When they come and they show you that art thing that they're really happy with, be like, how do you feel about it? If they're able to conceptualize, if they're not, you built that, you made that, and just see what they do from there. They have their own feelings about it then. Encourage their own feelings about it. It encourages independence, and it encourages them to not look to anybody else for affirmation. You're not going to end up with a child that's dependent on you for that, dependent on others for their emotional well-being anymore as adults, because they can rely on themselves, they trust their own abilities, and they're going to thrive more. So, yeah, it always seems to blow people away when I say, you shouldn't affirm too much, but that's what's happening there. So I've touched on a few different techniques there. I want to touch on a rule that I've got, um, and it's a funny one as to sort of where I use it. So I kind of this is going to make me sound terrible, but I am human, and um, I am an adult now, so it's all right. But it's the 4 words or less rule, essentially. So when a child's really dysregulated, if it takes any more than 4 words to say, don't bother saying it. It's going to pull them out of that emotional space we talked about earlier, and it's going to start setting them off. It'll make things worse. You're going to convolute what they're actually feeling, and it'll just lead to calamity. The 4 words or less rule is also something that if you're out there trying to it's the end of the night, you've all had a few drinks, you're a bit drunk yourself, and you're not exactly speaking pure poetry to anybody or anything like that, and you're dealing with people who are also smashed. Don't say any more than 4 words. It just seems to work quite well as a bit of a pickup technique. How you doing? Want a drink? Come to mine. It's just simple, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, because you're not exactly, a charmer when you're smashed, hey? So yeah, it works in that respect. But for children, they can't take any more than that, really, when they're quite emotional and quite heightened. It's important to eliminate as many words as possible and keep them in that emotional space. So a good one, say you've got a child who's quite scared. Let's combine those techniques that we used before. So the acknowledging of the emotion and the reaffirmation of what that emotion is in terms of a word. So let's put them together. So the child's scared. So you come into the room and you see this. Rather than going, oh, what are you scared of? What can I do to help? Why are you scared? Rather than doing that, come in and you sit next to the child, you get their eye contact, you try and get to their level, you put your hand on their shoulder and you say, you're scared, I'm here for you. And just let it breathe for a minute and just see where it goes from there. Sometimes a child may open up to you at that point and tell you what they're scared of. They may just seek the comfort that they require at the time to bring themselves down to that level where they're able to talk and discuss what's going on. So they're a couple of really good little tips for you. So focusing in on the dads now. So we talked about your roughhousing. Kids love it. They love it, and it's bonding for both of you. You both get the same release of oxytocin. You feel extra love for each other when you do it. The other thing that you probably need to do is expand your network out if you can. I mean, women are amazing at this. They've got this fantastic skill of, they drop the kid off at school. Next thing you know, they've got 10 mum friends. They're babysitting each other's kids. You're going on play dates. You're showing up to things. You're having barbecues, all of that, right? And it's awesome that they can do that. Us as blokes, we don't really do that, right? We get our small little group of blokes that we trust. And don't get me wrong, you only need probably 2 bad motherfuckers and you can take over the world, right? Who are on your side, who know you, who you can actually trust. That's awesome in a way. But at the same time, having such a small network kind of reduces those who we can rely on. It takes a village to raise a child. It's not one person that does it. It's not 2 people that do it. It's the whole community that sets the standard of that child and raises that socially desirable kid we're talking about. So something that I'd encourage you all to do is to reach out to other dads and other mums to get a network of other families with kids that you can go and interact with. I live in a town where my closest family member's 40 minutes away, roughly. I get along. I'm very lucky. I've got a big family, big extended family, and I get along with everybody, which is awesome. So I've got that support network. In terms of where I'm in this town, what I've had to do since going through my separation is build a network of other families, other mums and dads with kids that I can go and see. So when I've got her for my weekends, we have at least one play date, if not 2 or 3 over the weekend, where we go and I meet up with a mum and her 2 kids, or I've got a couple of single dad friends who have their kids the same weekend, and we'll go to a park or something just for a couple of hours even. And when you're parenting, as you all know, and you're parenting for 48 hours on your own, if not more, 72 hours by yourself, your child goes through a whole myriad of emotions, right? Like we're usually at our age pretty consistent in how we emotionally present. We're pretty chill most of the day, but kids certainly are. They're 1 second they're screaming, next second they're chill, next second they're happy, especially in that 2 to 12 sort of age bracket I'm talking about. Um, it can be exhausting. It can be, uh, there's potential for you to get frustrated. There's potential for you to feel like you can't do it, to want to, give your child back early. Even God's for some people. I've never felt that, but some people have reported to me they felt it. If you've got that network happening, you've got that couple of hours where you're out having a play. You're tiring the child out, so bedtime routine is going to be easier. You've got tips from other parents that they have developed over going through the wars with their kids as we are. Um, you've got connection, which is so important just generally for your overall mental health and well-being. If we focus it back on raising that socially desirable child, that's because us as humans, we need each other, like it or not. We need each other to live fulfilled lives. So you're getting that connection. Your child is too. Your child's getting those cool childhood friends that they'll talk about when they're older. That experience of different temperaments and different social structures and hierarchies that they develop amongst themselves, which is really cool to watch sometimes. There's a whole bunch of benefits to having that network. So I encourage you all to reach out if you can. In each community is different. For me, I developed it off Facebook. Tinder. I went on a couple of dates with a few girls and things, and then we decided that it wasn't going to be a relationship, but it doesn't mean that can't be a friendship. A couple of single mums there that I meet up with regularly that we're just friends. We're not dating, but our kids get together and they get to play. And I've got one friend in particular that's come about from that, and I get along super well with. She's got 2 kids, and her husband's an absolute not husband, future husband, which is awesome. He's an absolute legend. We get along, so it's just amazing what can come of just getting out there and talking to people through whatever medium you choose. If you're religious, a church group, you're going to have multiple families going to church that you can meet up with and discuss parenting and get your kids together for various things. I did that recently too. I got invited to a church just at the playground. I started talking to a family, and there were heaps of kids at the church, so Ella got to play and interact with a few different kids, which was really cool at the time. That's got to keep you in good stead. So let's talk about some sensory preferences. So as adults, we have them too, right? We have everything our kids have. Our kids crack it and they have a temper tantrum, right? We feel the same emotion that they do. It's just we're adults now, and we've learnt from our parents and from the community that if we crack it like that, we don't get what we want. It doesn't work. It doesn't lead to a positive outcome. So we feel the same emotion, but we don't crack it. Excuse me, I just kicked the table. We don't have the same response. So that applies to all aspects. All aspects of being an adult and a child. Essentially, I've lost my train of thought. Hang on, let me bring it back. Sensory needs. So we also have our senses, right? We have our preferences for senses. Some people like it hot days. Some people prefer it cold because they can rug up. Some people like, bright flashing lights. Others can't handle it. They get headaches. We all have our sensory preferences. So children are discovering theirs. Some children, through various levels of development, like there's various stages of development where certain senses are way more heightened than what they are once they're an adult. So heightened is, it takes a whole lot less of whatever it is, stimulus it is. So stimulus is the thing that we're applying to trigger the sense. So say light, for example, they require a whole lot less brightness in a light for it to affect their eyes and make them want to close their eyes than we do as an adult. I've got a bright light on me right now, so you can see me properly and it's not affecting me at all, whereas a young child, that might make them squint and affect their eyes. Same with taste. The fun little thing that we do with babies where we put a lemon in their mouth, their taste is, it doesn't take much to trigger it at that age. So you put that lemon in, they screw their little face up. It's the cutest thing, but Yeah, so your kids are discovering their sensory preferences at this time. So, especially around bedtime routine. So, as a child's dropping off to sleep, especially this is more the younger kids. So, as they get older and you've established a good bedtime routine, it'll probably get easier. But especially when they're young, so that sort of two to five bracket, it can be really difficult to get them down to sleep, especially too if you've got the weekend parenting arrangement. Um, and you only have them a couple of nights a week, it's such a big change for them to have them in that environment. So, getting them off to sleep can be quite the challenge. So, how does that relate to sensory preferences? You need to make as neutral as an environment, a neutral environment as you possibly can. Some kids may have a preference for a night light. If they don't, darkness is best. So, make it so they're not too hot, they're not too cold, it's quiet. We're reducing all of the stimulus. We're bringing everything down to a level where there's not much of it. And then you've got to take on that nurturer role for a minute. It's all in us. Like dads can be nurturing. We're kind of wired to be the playful, boisterous, fun, strong protector, but the nurturer's got to come out. They might need those cuddles. They might need that slow process to get to sleep. My daughter takes ages to drop off when she's with me. It's probably a good 20-minute process where I turn everything off. I bring everything down. There's no sound. It's nice and dark. And we just sit in a chair and I rock her and I try and get her off to sleep. And it's actually a really nice moment because there's no other stimulus in the room. It's just her and I for that time. And sometimes it can take an hour, but for the most part, it's around 20 minutes. And it's just her and I. And she fights. Her fighting sleeping is hilarious because she just wants to play. I'm dad, right? So she like sticks her fingers in my mouth and like tries to poke me in the eye and grabs my nose and does all this silly stuff as I bring her down to go to sleep. But it's a beautiful moment. So if you do that, you're going to have more success bringing them down. If you do have a night light, not too bright. You don't want something that's, lighten the room up like it's daytime, but just paying attention to things that we don't even think about as adults in the room because our preferences are already set and we can tolerate so much sensory input anyway, usually, that it's not a big deal if there's no other things at play, such as ASD and different disorders. We can tolerate most stuff, at least for a period of time. Kids, however, can't. So just that extra bit of thought for their room, make it nice and dark or just a nice low night light, getting the temperature right, nice and quiet, and being a nurturer in that environment should help you get them down. Now, I want to touch on behaviours around transitions for children. So the transition into your care and the transition out of your care is a time where you can often see behaviours. And once they're back at their other parent's place, there can be behaviours, right? You've probably all heard, especially if you've got that, we'll continue to work off the Saturdad scenario. So you've only got every second weekend. So you're probably hearing reports from the child's other parent, the mother, that the child is behavioural in the lead up to that weekend and quite behavioural when they get back. So they're dysregulated. They're probably looking for a lot of comfort from their mother. They're probably there's going to be some difficult to manage behaviours, I guess, too. They might be more frustrated than usual, more angry than usual, just more heightened, I would describe it as. So easier to set off to make them upset. Easier for them to start to cry, easier for them to be scared. They're going to be in a bit more of an intense sort of phase in the lead up and when they get back. That's because it's a change. Change is difficult for everybody, right? Like, I talked about, I think on a previous podcast about developing an adjustment disorder. It's when a change is forced upon you so fast that you can't quite comprehend it properly and you don't adjust. So you start slipping into being depressed and you can't fathom it and you get anxious and all kinds of stuff, right? Change is difficult for everyone. It's extremely difficult for children. Even small changes, can be quite intense for them. Like in my therapy, my therapeutic practice, the room is always the same, right? For that reason, I don't want kids to come in and be instantly triggered. Especially ones that have disorders such as autism, where they're already more likely to see things that are out of place and be triggered. Like just your kid. This doesn't diagnose autism. Just to clarify that, but just if you've got like a 2 to 5-year-old, right? Just do this at home. It's a fun little experiment. Get their toy cars and line them up with them. Get them to participate. If they're not, just let them watch, right? Line them up and then just put maybe 1 or 2 cars, put them backwards, and then just watch what your kid does. It's a good example of how they can't handle, that change, that thing being out of place, right? They'll come up and they'll put that car straight pretty quick. Especially, around 2, 3, they really love that lining up stuff. They'll be on it real quick. They'll come up and turn that car around. Yeah, they won't be able to handle it at all. That's a very minor change. That causes them a little bit of anxiety to the point they have to change it straight away. Transitioning from one house with one set of expectations and rules to another house with another set of expectations and rules, that's huge. What's more, one nurturing style to a different nurturing style, one parent they love to another parent they love. They love you both the same, but it's just the feeling is different. How it's expressed is different. You're talking a major shake-up of their life. Right. It's huge. It's huge. So some things that we can do to counteract the behaviours leading up and the behaviours when they get back. There's a couple of things that I want to touch on. So one is both parents should make sure that child is informed and aware of what's happening in the lead up to and the transition back. So depending on where your child's at developmentally, reassuring them and telling them is a good way, but another way is a visual cue, a visual aid. So something on the fridge, right? Like you could stick it on the fridge, a magnet calendar or something that they themselves interact with. This will help. They need to interact with it. So not just writing on the calendar, here, and then dad's or something. If you've got something they can touch, like a tangible magnet or something that they can come and take off and put somewhere else, for example, could help. So at mum's place, they have, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they go to dad's Friday, let's say, have 4 red magnets, can be any color, and 3 blue. And every day when they get up, they come and they go, 3 more sleeps to dad. And they take Monday's magnet off and they put it somewhere else. And then Tuesday, do that every day. So that's just ensuring that that child is aware of each day that's coming up that they're going to go to dad's on that Friday. They can see it visually. They've thought about it each day, and you've reinforced what is coming up for them. Same when they get to your place as dad. If you have the same, try and get the same visual aid if you can, the exact same one as that's at mum's. That just has the 3 days on it and then the same colour magnet, the red for mum, and they take it off every day. If you can implement that consistently at an age where they're really quite behavioural, that 2 to 5 type range, after 5, if proximal development's met, they're usually able to kind of start to comprehend that that's what happens anyway, it's routine. But that particular age group, if you can do that and do it consistently across both houses, that will work to reduce the anxiety around what happens next and the anxiety around and subsequently some of the behaviours that may develop. That's a good little tip that I've seen good effect with. And the other thing that I want to touch on around that is agency. So agency is your ability and right to make choices in the world regarding your life, right? Like I've chosen to do this podcast. I can choose to just stop doing it. I choose to go to work. I choose where I work. I choose what I eat each day. I've got hundreds of choices every day I can make for my life and my well-being. Children don't get many choices at all. And there's a reason for that. They're children. They don't know how to make choices yet. You know what I mean? Like they get choice paralysis so easy where they're just sitting there like, I don't know which one I want. Like take a kid to a store and offer him a wall of toys and he'll struggle to pick a toy. But if you offer him 2 toys, he's more likely to pick one. So that's the technique that I've just said before I've explained the technique for giving kids agency, is you give them some choices where practical, because sometimes it's not practical to give a kid a choice. Don't give them a choice as to if they go to dad's or not. They're going to dad's. Don't give them a choice as to if they're going back to mum's. They're going home. That's the arrangement that you've got for both parents. That's not a choice you can provide. You don't give them a choice as if they go to school or not. You're going to school. Unless you're sick or whatever, it's not a choice that you can give that child. But a choice that you can give them is to pick their outfit in the morning. Don't open the wardrobe and go pick whatever you want to wear because you'll be standing there for hours potentially. 2 outfits. Grab one, grab another, hold them up. Which one would you like to wear today? And that gives them a choice of outfits. They may pick one. That brings their anxiety down a little bit. That brings their behaviours down a little bit because they feel like they've had a say in their life for a minute there, right? So, they might pick one. Same with food. Say, breakfast, you can have toast or cereal, and you put the 2 in front of them. Visual choice. Which one would you like? That sort of thing. Because they don't have a choice over that changing of house. They don't have a choice over, the changing expectations. But if you're continuing to give those little choices, that's giving back some of that agency. Even the illusion of choice sometimes can help. I didn't say that, but it can. Just providing them that little bit. Because like as adults, if you take away our agency, God, the tantrums we crack. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got to look at any society in history that's oppressed its people for too long and taken away all their agency. Revolution. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just something that you can't take from an adult without severe repercussions that person feels it quite significantly emotionally, and they'll react at some point to having their agency taken. So same with children. We're practical, but also acknowledge there's always a third choice. And the third choice might be, I don't want to do any of those fucking things. I'm going to crack the shit. That's the third choice. They can always make that choice. And then that's when you let them know that was their choice. It's their choice, right? So I gave you the option of having toast or cereal. You chose to crack it and throw the cereal on the floor. As a result of that choice, you can now either pick up the cereal or consequence B. You pick the consequence. Then they got 2 choices, and those choices are enforceable. So, yeah, they'll learn pretty quick to make one of the 2 choices, pretty much. But yeah, there's always the option of the third choice. So another little parenting tip for dads who are doing it on their own. Communicate. If it's practical at all to talk to your ex-partner about anything to do with parenting, what they do at their place, for punishments, for food, for anything, if you can make it as consistent as possible, you're going to find the transitions easier both to your place and back to theirs. If you're feeding similar food, you're not going to have the fights over dinner, right? If your discipline is the same, you're going to get similar results across both houses. If your clothing's similar, if everything's similar, if you can try and create as much similarity between the environments as possible, you're going to get less behaviours. It's going to be easier on the child too because the expectations are pretty much the same across both. It's just slotting into those different environments. Try and do that where possible. I'd suggest also communicating with the daycare, communicate with the school, anyone who will talk to you about what they do with your child and the success of those techniques that they're using, because there's hundreds of parenting techniques out there. Anyone who's willing to talk to you, talk to them. Get a feel for what's happening everywhere and then implement it at home. Kids are looking for consistency and routine. It helps them to thrive. That's the other thing too, is you must have boundaries. There has to be boundaries because if there's no boundaries, there's too much entropy. Entropy is just the possibility that a whole bunch of things could happen. It's chaos. It's pure chaos. Kids push boundaries because they want to know where they are. That's the thing. They push that little bit further, and then once they have that boundary, it actually alleviates anxiety for them and calms them down. It makes them feel safer to have solid boundaries in their lives. So don't be afraid when a behavior is not pro-social, when a behavior is, to the detriment of themselves or it hurts someone or, anything there. Don't be afraid to correct that behavior. Your discipline needs to be appropriate for that behavior. Discipline is a hard one, especially if you're looking at it from a gender perspective, I guess, which I try not to do. But if we are, women discipline different to men. We're different. Men are tougher. Women are softer. That's just temperament generally. That exists in the world. That is just when you talk about a feminine temperament, you're talking nurturing, calm, um, neurotic, various other aspects of feminine. When you're talking about man, you're talking, headstrong, um, stubborn, masculine. They're masculine traits, that sort of stuff. I'm sorry I said some of the negative ones, but just sometimes racking the brain is a bit hard, and that's just what comes up. But, those are the two different temperaments. Your discipline as a father will be different to that of the mother. So talking about that with the mother, I think, is important, so they understand the type of discipline you do. It's always a challenge for mothers to accept male discipline. It can be a challenge, not always, but it can be for them to appreciate it and understand it, especially if that woman was raised in a single mother house and hasn't seen masculine discipline before. Our voices are deeper, they're louder, we're gruffer, we're bigger. Things that to us are just like, stop what you're doing and you don't even think about it, to them can be loud, scary. You yelled at them, that sort of thing. Like, it can be a challenge. So once again, come back to that communication. Try and discuss it with them and, assist them to understand that you weren't even angry. That's just your voice being low because, I've heard it before. I've been told that you're angry and you're yelling at your child when I'm just not. I'm just got a loud voice. I've got a low, deep voice, man's voice. So it's just different. It's different characteristics to it. It's important to acknowledge that and try and find a way where you can both work together on it. So I wanted to touch on the role of the mother. This is a positive thing that I want to say about it, because when a separation happens and divorce, the personal bullshit between the two can get in the way of what really matters here, and that's not what we want either. That's not what I want to do in this podcast. And it feeds back into the point I just raised about masculine discipline being different and can sometimes appear as confronting to women. The hardest thing a woman will ever do and the biggest sacrifice they'll ever make is offering their child up to the world. It's a mother's instinct to protect that child at all costs. They're hyper vigilant for things that could be dangerous or scary to that child, especially when that child's first born, that first year of life. A lot of women will describe walking down the street and being scared of things they weren't scared of before. That's biology, because if you're out in the middle of the wilderness and you've just had a child and there's predators everywhere that want to eat it, you being hyper vigilant is good. You being on those eyes going and everything and being scared of things that you weren't before, that's a good thing. So mothers are going to be hyper vigilant in that at least first year, if not forever. At some point, there needs to be the understanding that child must go out into the world and they will face all the calamity of the world. The world itself is chaos. Us as humans have to try and make order out of it every day, but things happen, all around us that are horrible and great and awesome and shocking and scary and positive, and all at once. Some things are awesome and scary at the same time. Like things happen all around. At some point, that child needs to go into the world and experience it. So to all the mothers out there who are able to let their child experience the world as it is, well done to you. You should pat yourself on the back. That's the image of the Madonna. That's the woman that offers her child up to the world. You are amazing. You are the quintessential mother. You are great for being able to do that and manage how you feel about it, because it's going to be scary for you offering that child up to the world, yet you've still done it. So that's something for us as men to acknowledge as well, is that's how they feel. That's how they feel around their children. They're hyper-vigilant about every possible threat that could come their child's way. Whereas us as men, we feel our responsibility to prepare that child for those calamities rather than necessarily fully shelter them from them. That's how we protect, is we prepare. So, navigating that dichotomy of emotion is going to be a challenge, and especially when you're not in a relationship with that person. Try and communicate as much as you can about it. Communicate about how you're both feeling about the different types of parenting and what's been going on. I can't stress that enough. If it is possible, we need to find ways to positively co-parent for our kids. It's important to their long-term thriving. Who cares what happened in the separation? It's just money. It's just shit. You probably got screwed. You're a bloke. Put money on it. You got screwed. But it is what it is. Who cares? You still got your kids. If you've still got your kids, you've won. You've won life. You've got children in your life. So just put aside your pride. Put aside any emotion you may feel. It's irrelevant. Your child is the most important thing. Try and communicate. Try and talk through these different things. And I think that's a good place to end this podcast. I hope I've given some good little hints and tips and insight and that sort of thing into family dynamics and parenting and children. And I especially want to, encourage anyone to go back and have a listen to the bit I talked about, where I talked about the transitions from one parent's house to the next. It can be a reason why parents, I guess, become resistant to the transition to the other parent's house, and they start looking at withholding care and that sort of stuff, and they might cancel it, that sort of thing. Please don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. Just work with a management technique for the child, because it is vital that both parents are involved in their life to the greatest possible degree that both can. 50-50 is ideal. Where not possible, whatever you can get, please do it. We've got to keep both parents in our children's lives. So to all the Saturdads out there, thanks for tuning in. To everybody else who's had a listen, thank you. I hope I've provided something of value here. And just remember, you are not alone. You've joined a brotherhood of blokes doing everything we possibly can to be the best parents to our children that we possibly can be. Look after each other. Peace, love, Saturdad. 'Cause we will